and welcome to Long Live the Queen, where we talk about the women who made history. And by we, I mean the royal we, because it's just me. Today we're going to talk about Anne of Brittany. So at 22, Anne had endured 6 near full-term pregnancies and had no surviving heirs. So this is like the Catherine of Aragon situation, where she just kept losing her babies, and her longest-lived child reached the age of 3, but none of them had survived past that. And they wondered if she was cursed. There was rumors that she was cursed. And with every loss, Brittany's hopes faded because she's the last heir. If she doesn't have a baby, Brittany goes back to the French crown, probably. So on April 7, 1498, Charles VIII, at 27, struck his head on a decorative doorframe. There was these things in the corners of the doorframe that would round out the doors, like they'd kind of round off the corners. He hit his head on that part of the doorframe. That's why they took them out. I mean, that's not why they took them out, but that's probably part of the reason they took them out. People were sick of hitting their heads on them. So
you hit your head on something like that.
He wasn't paying attention. He hit his head on a decorative doorframe. And then he went to his tennis match. He played a full tennis match. And then on the way back home from his tennis match, like he's at the palace. It's not like he's not at home, but on his way back to his quarters from the tennis match, he fell into a coma. And then he died 9 hours later. He didn't starve to death. He fell into a coma and then died right after tennis.
Yeah, he had a brain bleed.
Maybe, but modern day technology tells us that hitting his head on the doorframe like that probably couldn't have caused that kind of damage. He couldn't have been going fast enough to hit his head to play a full game of tennis and then be dead 9 hours later.
I think somebody hit his head for him.
Well, it's time for Christina's Conspiracy Corner, which is where I make stuff up and we decide if we think it's true.
Yay!
So, tennis-related deaths are piling up. There's a lot of deaths that happen in France and Scotland and England, tennis-related. Now, they played a lot of tennis, so it's just bound to happen, I guess. But the timing is sus. It could have been poison. This king had no children. He had a nephew that technically wasn't in line for the throne because it would have to go through his mother, Anne. And so he wasn't a prince of the blood, but Anne was very popular. So he could have made his nephew, they could have maybe bent the rules for his nephew. He died around the same time. And so this line of the royal family ended here because he had no children with Queen Anne. And so it went to the first prince of the blood, who was also the king's brother-in-law. I'm just saying, if he wanted to be the king, the 2 people he needed dead died right around the same time.
But do you think, I mean, I don't know, I've had a lot of people who were eating the food. I mean, how precise could you get poisoning just one person's food?
Well, so a lot of the thought is that after tennis you're thirsty. So if you offer him a poison drink, he's probably going to drink the whole thing because he just played a whole game of tennis. There's multiple people in France have died after playing a rousing game of tennis and taking a big large drink of something. So there's no proof. Nothing. I made that up. But if this was a show, that's how it would go. Someone would be poisoned and you'd be like, ooh, look at that. The king is dead. Long live the king. And Charles left no heirs. So the crown passed to Louis, Duke of Orleans, who was 36 and the first prince of the blood, and King Charles' brother-in-law, married to his sister Joan, who has an episode upcoming. I just did an episode on this king's sister and Joan's sister, Anne. So that comes out, I think, the week before yours does. And basically, this new king, his wife, the king's sister, was given to him because she was born malformed in some way, and it was suspected that she was sterile. So her dad gave his daughter to this guy to try and extinguish his line of the royal family. Which is another reason I think he could have poisoned her brother. He was really mad at his in-laws. He did not like them. He didn't even like his wife. And she, spoiler alert, she will become a literal saint. So this is Saint Joan, and she's married to this man, who I don't really like that much. But he is now King Louis XII, known as Louis the Fortunate, because no one thought he was going to be king ever. And somehow it just happened. Louis the Fortunate. He's so fortunate.
For now.
Yeah, but this fortunate man, he was bitter at his in-laws. He didn't like that his wife had been given to him because she was probably sterile. And they'd been married like 25 years, still no kids. So it was working.
Well, now, is that because he didn't cry or just because he just assumed?
They get into it with the annulment accusations. But yeah, there's some debate about whether he even ever tried.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he decided, along with the king's wife, the Dowager Queen now, young Anne, who's 17, Queen Anne. No, she's older than 17 now. 1920 something. She's young. But the Dowager Queen and him come up with a plan, and mostly him because he is in his 30s. He's a grown-ass man, and she's still very young. He's going to get an annulment from Joan. Ditch that person. Get rid of those in-laws because he hates them. And he'll marry the Dowager Queen Anne. She'll be Queen of France a second time with a new king, the old king's second cousin. And she was like, yeah, it's better than nothing, sure. So Anne agreed to marry Louis if he secured his annulment from Joan. And she went back to Brittany in 1498 and just waited for the Pope to tell her, like, who she was married to. Just like, let me know when there's a ruling. On January 8, 1499, 3 weeks before her 22nd birthday, Anne, Duchess of Brittany, married King Louis XII. His annulment had been a messy affair, and it thoroughly embarrassed Joan. We'll get into that in her episode. But she, mortified at how things went down, quietly retired to a nunnery, where she'd later be canonized as Saint Joan in 1950. So Anne was Queen of France again, and as far as I know, she's the only woman to do that twice, to marry two different kings of France and be the Queen of France twice in a row. Well, technically it goes her, Joan, her, because for like a hot second, Joan was still married to her husband,
right.
But yeah, she's like Eleanor of Aquitaine level. Eleanor of Aquitaine was Queen of France and Queen of England at 2 different times. But Anne, Duchess of Brittany, is Queen of France 2 different times. So their marriage wasn't really a romance novel. It was a partnership where they were just like, hey, we both hate our in-laws. What do you say we team up against them and fuck them over? But Anne still needed children. She needed a son for her husband to produce an heir for France, and she needed at least a daughter for Brittany. Like a girl could run Brittany. So bare minimum, she needed a girl. Without them, Brittany would pass to distant cousins, and France would pass to the next prince of the blood, who was a 4-year-old child, Francis, Count of Angoulême, who was the great-grandson of fun Uncle Louis, if anyone listened to that episode. That's Isabeau of Bavaria's episode. So Francis's mother watched Anne's pregnancies like a hawk, because her 4-year-old son was the next prince of the blood, and she was living for that. On October 13, 1499, Anne, at 22, bore Princess Claude, Brittany's new future duchess, because she can't be Queen of France, Salic law, but she can be the Duchess of Brittany. And it is suspected that Claude may have had Down syndrome, based on her physical appearance, the way they described her, and her personality. She's described as being somewhat childlike and naive, but very kind and happy. And so some people suspect that she might have had Down syndrome, but that hadn't been identified yet, so they wouldn't have called it that. And all of that's pretty speculative anyways. It's just people looking back and being like, it's an option, maybe. In late 1500 or early 1501, she had a stillborn son who went unnamed. And in January 1503, another stillborn son, followed by a miscarriage later that same year. So this is definitely a lot like Catherine of Aragon, where she's just got
Right.
the one daughter. And in 1508, there was another loss, likely a miscarriage. And in October of 1510, Anne, 33, delivered Princess Renee, who survived. So now she's got two daughters. She's had a lot of pregnancies, but she has two daughters who survived. And in 1512, a final stillborn son. And that was it. She had somewhere between 11 to 14 pregnancies.
Yeah.
And Claude and Renee were the two who survived.
And I think it's like from the age of like 12 to 32.
Yeah, something like that.
That's a lot of pregnancies to have and,
Yeah.
and just that short
I
of
think
hands.
14 to... I heard she had her first baby at 14 or maybe barely 15. Yeah.
Right. That's heavy.
That means that King Louis XII, Louis the Fortunate, does not have an heir. And the whole time, Louise of Savoy was thrilled. Every time the Queen lost a boy or lost a baby, she was like, nice, my son's next. He stays the heir if you don't have any boys. She's kind of a bitch, but we'll get into her.
Yeah, I think later someone accused her of putting a curse on
Yeah,
Anne.
I mean, yeah.
I'd see.
And in 1505, Louis was gravely ill. And he decided to betroth his 6-year-old daughter, Claude, to Francis, who was now 11, the first Prince of the Blood. So he's like, look, if I die, this little boy's my heir, so I'm going to marry my oldest daughter to this guy, because then at least she'll be Queen of France, and it won't be my family line, but my daughter will carry on my family line.
Right.
This probably sucked for Anne, because there was no stipulation on this marriage. Brittany was going to her daughter Claude, which means that Brittany would end up being absorbed into France, because if Claude married Francis, and then Francis became king, what's hers is his, and there was no clause put in there. So that would have been very frustrating to her, because she fought her whole life to keep Brittany independent. But on her death, it would cease to be independent, because it would be her daughters who would then be part of the crown.
Exactly.
And Anne fought to limit French control in Brittany, even though it was going into French hands. She had coins, tombs, illuminated books depicting her as Brittany's sovereign duchess. She was like, if I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out with a bang. We're going to remember when Brittany was a free duchy.
Right.
And her court was a cultural hub, blending Breton traditions with Renaissance flair. Like, the Renaissance really started to pick up. They were like, we could do this. We could be learned people here. And so there's a lot of...
into books and libraries.
Fancy books, illuminated manuscripts.
Right.
They wrote on those things with gold. On January 9th, 1514, 2 weeks before her 37th birthday, Anne died at Blois. Likely from kidney stones or uterine infection. So that sucks. And her body was worn down by relentless pregnancies. Like 11 to 14 pregnancies. Crazy.
Because it's funny, because in the beginning, the scholars would describe her as robust.
Mm-hmm.
And then as she got towards her 30s, they described her as gaunt.
Yeah. I mean, 14 pregnancies in about as many years will do that to you.
I know.
She just...
But I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, there's just no break. And just not even to mention, like, all the sorrow. Like, she was probably sad all the time.
Yeah,
she didn't have time to get over the last one before the next one happened.
Right. Yeah.
And that'll hit you hard, I think. I mean, I think she was just like, this sucks. I'm so over this.
And then, if she even got, like, attached at any time,
Mm-hmm.
I would, after, like, number 6, become dissociated,
Yeah.
know, you're not even bonding
Yeah, I
to
mean,
your
is she even bonding to either of her daughters at that point? Because she lost
right.
6 kids before Claude was born, and then a bunch more before Renee was born. So, King Louis XII, the fortunate, the ever grieving, in air quotes, married Mary Tudor, Henry VIII's teenage sister, 9 months after Anne of Brittany died. That little bitch. 9 months. He married a teenager 9 months after she died. He was desperate
Oh,
for an heir.
needed an heir.
He needed an heir real bad. And this is where that part from the Tudors comes in. When Princess Margaret goes over and marries the King of Portugal.
Oh,
This is the real
but
story. Princess Mary went over and married the elderly King of France who needed an heir. Because otherwise, his heir was Francis, that little kid who was engaged to his daughter. And he didn't want that. And he was Louis the Fortunate. He wasn't supposed to be king. And spoiler alert, he doesn't have a son. So his dynasty, his line, family line, was just him. His dad was not king. His son was not king. He was king of France, and then it went to the next line. Which is not what Louis the Fortunate wanted, but he's just like a blip. That's probably why he's Louis the Fortunate. Just like a blip, married to St. Joan.
exactly.
Yeah. So,
That, no, that's his only footnote.
like in the Tudors, he died 3 months into the marriage, childless. Mary Tudor was not pregnant, and she eloped with Charles Brandon back in England. And she'll have an upcoming episode where we talk about that whole drama because she is the Queen of France for 3 months. Mary Tudor is. So Francis, now 19, became King Francis I. And Claude, who's 14 now, is his queen, and she's also Brittany's duchess. Claude died in 1524 at 25. Her
Oh
frail
no.
health contributed to it. She was pregnant a bunch of times too, and actually quite a few of her children lived, but she died at 25. So, I mean, they definitely took something out of her. So, Renee was 3 when Anne died, so she probably never did get enough time to bond with her after all those and she was only with her for 3 years. And she joined Claude's court and later married Hercule d'Este II, who is the son of Lucrezia Borgia. If anybody knows who that is, she has an episode. So Renee became Lucrezia Borgia's daughter-in-law. Anne, Duchess of Brittany, was a force, nearly England's queen, briefly the Holy Roman Empress, and then France's queen twice. So that's like a lot. And she did all of that before she was even had a fully grown brain. Like, she was not even fully a grown-up yet. She was pregnant 11 to 14 times. She lost all but Claude and Renee. And that breaks my heart for her. It seems like she did her best in a really shitty situation. Just shitty situation after shitty situation. And she fought for Brittany's soul and independence, and her art and laws are basically like one last middle finger. Like, you guys are going to know that we wanted to be independent if we're not going to be independent anymore. There's going to be a lot of statues, a lot of books. We're going to tell you that this is not what we want. Like, you know what? If we're not going to be independent anymore, I'm going to spend all my money on making this place a beautiful fucking place, which I can respect. I feel like that's how I'm going to go out, too.
Very much so.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like, even, like, made her own tomb.
Yep. And remember, her parents were in that fancy tomb.
Right.
So, like, her dad was kind of doing that already, but yeah. And then hers was also same. Yeah, same girl, same.
Yeah.
She was, like, Britain to the core. She was like, I'm from Brittany, bitches. I'm not... I'm Brittany, bitch. For sure. What did you think of Anne, Duchess of Brittany?
I think she was pretty, but, you know, she...
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said Lady Lyanna Mormont.
Yeah.
She was like a little girl boss. Like, what's wrong with you people? Let's get this together.
Right. She had to grow up fast. Like, she was an adult Should have been an adult.
Yeah, 13, she was married to an emperor. At 14, she was married to a different king. Her
Well,
first betrothed is still missing in action.
she wrote her own marriage
Yeah.
contract during this time.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trust my 12-year-old to do anything.
No! Absolutely not.
I mean,
I think it maybe speaks well about her father's advisors.
right.
I feel like she
Well,
had a lot of
her,
assistance.
her not only her advisors, but her education.
Yes.
I
Yes.
think I think her dad probably took her under his wing and was like drilling into
Yeah.
her
He
different.
left her in a good spot, I feel like, as
Right.
far as if you have to be a duchess at 12,
Right.
I'm going to set you up for success as best I can because everybody wants Brittany. It's Brittany, bitch.
And it's just crazy. It's just like, and then you have to wonder, like, because this is what I do. I don't know why, but like, if her parents had survived and got her to adulthood,
Mm-hmm.
what would have that been like?
I mean,
Would
maybe
she,
it would still be an independent country today.
right? Like, what would have
Yeah, I
happened?
don't know. I mean, I feel like it's kind of like Portugal, right? Like, Spain wanted the
Right.
entire Iberian Peninsula, and they got the entire Iberian Peninsula except for the Kingdom of Portugal. And today, Portugal is its own country because it stayed an independent kingdom. So maybe Brittany would be its own little country hanging out next to France.
Might have changed the dynamics of the world, or who
Yeah,
knows?
yeah. And she tried her hardest. She tried her heart out. I don't think she could have done anything else.
No, the poor thing. Like, she literally gave her life to Brittany.
Yeah.
Like, she tried to have heirs. She tried to make sure it's
Mm-hmm.
independent. If she had any like psychotic breaks during that time,
Yeah, I
like,
mean, she seems like she held it together considering all the bad. I mean, they didn't even have antidepressants back then, so
right,
she figured it out somehow. So it's
great,
sad, but it's like kind of amazing.
right,
And I thought
like,
it'd be fun to do this one with you because we mentioned Philip the Handsome, and
yeah. Well,
it's
then you
like
got
this
the
is
logo,
the same world.
right? Yeah, and
And
then
we talked about
and
the tutors, and it had a
I
lot of
know,
you reminders. So I was like, this one is perfect for Char.
kind of wraps up all the little shards episodes into
Yep.
one little
Yeah, it's a little bundle now.
bundle now. Yeah, I
Well,
love it.
it's fun.
It is very
And I'm
fun.
talking about this anyway, so this gives my husband a bit of a break from hearing me just yammer on about random stuff that happened in history that he does not care about. And he
Oh,
basically gets the live version from me every day, so
yeah.
he doesn't need to, but you can share your thoughts with me at longlivethequeenpodcast@gmail.com, slide into my DMs on Facebook or Instagram at Long Live the Queen Podcast, or join the Royal Court on Patreon. On Wednesdays, we talk about Queen's Court gossip, where we just take the gossip out of an episode and just cover that. We don't cover anything else. You don't hear about when people were born, when people died, really, unless there's scandal. It's just the drama clips of their life, and it's a lot of fun. The link is in the show description. Come vibe with us.
Long live all the queens out there. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.
Will be remembered.
Thanks for listening.